Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our mission today is to analyze, the hidden operating system of human behavior. We're taking sources from the highest tiers of tech strategy, applying some historical game theory to personal relationships.
And then crashing right into the sobering reality of what people say they do versus what they, actually do.
It really is a study in strategy versus reality.
It is. We've collected material on Peter Thiel's, let's say, radical views on avoiding competition, the core psychological levers that govern motivation in the workplace,
And critically,
how large-scale surveys just fundamentally misrepresent behavior. The goal for you is to walk away understanding how all these things, strategic action, motivation, measurement, they're all governed by this one principle.
which is.
The gap between perceived value and objective truth.
Okay, let's unpack this. And we're starting with one of the most provocative business ideas of the last 20 years.
That's so.
The strategic genius of avoiding a fight entirely. Peter Thiel argues true innovation isn't just improving something from 1 to n, it's creating something brand new, moving from 0 to 1.
And establishing a monopoly.
Precisely.
So you're creating a whole new market.
If you're building a genuinely new market, you aren't fighting for thin margins, you are creating a unique, defensible position. For Thiel, competition is just. It's inherently destructive to long-term value. It's the ultimate strategic escape.
But the sources make it really clear that even with that grand vision, the execution it's messy.
Oh, it's chaotic.
The PayPal story is a textbook example, isn't it? Aiming for monopoly while fighting absolute chaos.
It is. When PayPal was scaling fast, they experienced what they called a negative exponential curve.
Which sounds terrifying.
It means they had exponentially growing users, which sounds great, but that was matched by exponentially growing costs, mostly from credit card fees and fraud losses.
So they were successful and on the brink of collapse at the same time. Highly precarious. The revenue model just wasn't kicking in fast enough to cover the chaos of that growth.
And their competitors could smell blood in the water. I mean, one of the most critical moments came when eBay bought their rival, BillPoint,
Right.
and moved to integrate it. That sounds like checkmate.
You would think so.
Yeah.
But Thiel's team, they spotted a crucial detail. eBay had bought the company, but they had not yet launched the actual operational BillPoint product.
So it was a future threat, not a current one.
It was a potential threat, not an immediate one. And that tiny window of time was what allowed PayPal to maneuver and, to survive.
That's a perfect example of strategy just resting on pure observation. And it also seems that patience is key here.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not always about that instant profitability.
Right. Our source material points that out so clearly. Deferring profitability isn't a failure condition. Just look at Amazon.
They deferred profit for, almost 2 decades?
Almost 2 decades. Their main focus during that whole time wasn't maximizing immediate returns. It was establishing market position, breaking free of competition in one retail sector after another.
The long game is the monopoly game.
That's it.
This brings us to a fascinating parallel. How does this philosophy, maximizing your unique position, avoiding direct competition, how does that translate outside of tech and into, say, human relationships?
We have sources that apply these exact game theory concepts directly to romantic negotiation.
Really?
Yeah. The mechanism is identical. Maximizing your relative value and minimizing the competition.
So making yourself irreplaceable.
Or at least uniquely difficult to compete with. Historically, certain prominent women employed strategies that really resonate with Thiel's idea of creating a moat around your unique position.
Okay, so what are some examples of that kind of leverage?
Well, consider figures like Cleopatra or Nina de Linclos in 17th century France. She was renowned. She cultivated this reputation and justified her own sexual license using early naturalistic theories.
So she was operating outside the normal rules.
She was maximizing her influence outside of the standard societal constraints. Or take Diane de Poitiers. She wasn't just leveraging beauty or charm. She consciously built an extensive patron-client network that amplified her influence far beyond the court.
She built a power base.
A power base that made competing with her position incredibly difficult for any rival.
So whether you're founding PayPal or securing a relationship, it's fundamentally about creating non-fungible value. You build a strategic moat around your position.
Exactly. And biologically, we see echoes of this. Relationship commitment, it acts as an evolutionary mechanism for reproductive success because it requires you to suppress thoughts of alternative partners.
That suppression reinforces the monopoly.
The emotional and resource monopoly you need for stability.
Fascinating. So that urge to escape the competitive fray is just a deep, consistent human drive.
It seems to be.
Let's transition now. We've gone from the strategic battlefield to the internal dynamics of the daily workplace. If you're a leader, you've got your position, but how do you motivate the people inside your own moat?
This is where organizational psychology really comes in. It shifts the focus from external strategy to internal drive, and we rely heavily on motivation theory here.
So we're talking about more than just salary.
Much more. While pay and bonuses are crucial, once those basic needs are met, you have to address Maslow's higher level needs, specifically esteem.
And esteem isn't just about feeling good, right? It's a deeper need for what? Competence.
Correct. The internal esteem needs confidence, achievement, autonomy. They're satisfied when managers give people opportunities to demonstrate true competence.
Challenging work.
Genuinely challenging work, and recognizing their accomplishments with positive, constructive feedback. If you can give them autonomy, that self-sovereignty over their work, you've given them a sense of control that reinforces their own internal value.
But motivation is never just about the individual. People are always comparing. And this brings us to equity theory.
And this is the managerial challenge in a nutshell. Equity theory shows that employees are constantly measuring their ratio of input, their effort, their skill to their output.
Their salary, recognition.
Exactly. And they're measuring it against the perceived ratio of similar colleagues. If that ratio feels imbalanced, if they think they're working harder for less, they are motivated to resolve that inequity.
And that resolution isn't always constructive. It's not just, asking for a raise.
Oh no. If they can't change the reward, they change the input. They might lower their productivity, stop taking initiative, or just withhold valuable, citizenship behaviors.
So little things that make the team work better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The sources highlight that a series of small perceived inequities can lead to a really measurable drop in output, even if the actual pay gap is minor.
This demands such careful management, especially around feedback. The sources highlight an incredibly destructive pattern where managers can accidentally induce a psychological state that can be devastating.
We're talking about organizationally induced learned helplessness. It's a huge problem.
How does that happen?
It happens when feedback consistently attributes negative outcomes to an employee's intrinsic character, their ability, instead of to external, temporary factors. The employee starts to internalize that failure is inevitable, no matter how hard they try.
And that challenges a core assumption managers make, which is that if you just remove the bad environment,
Like a bad boss or a restrictive policy,
the employee will just bounce back.
but the profound danger here is that the helplessness often persists long after those original barriers are gone.
Wow.
The employee might start rejecting training, declining challenging assignments, or just stopping innovation because they psychologically believe, I am inherently incapable of success here, even if the entire management structure has changed.
An internal barrier.
It's an internal barrier. It's far harder to dismantle than an external one.
That is a critical distinction for anyone leading a team. So on a larger scale then, we also have to think about group behavior. Beyond individual drive, what about the team dynamic itself?
Well, the data strongly suggests that emotional intelligence, or EI, is the decisive factor in group success.
So not just IQ.
No, the old adage really holds true. IQ might get you hired, but EI is what gets you promoted. A productive, creative team needs strong team EI.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning they have to foster mutual trust, a shared sense of group identity, and efficacy, the belief that the group can succeed together.
But that focus on group cohesion, it comes with a pretty big historical warning sign, doesn't it?
It does.
The same impulse that creates trust can also lead to blind compliance.
Absolutely. The foundational work by Solomon Asch showed us that humans have this powerful tendency to conform to a small group's ideas, even when they know the group is factually wrong.
That need to belong.
That innate need for belonging can overcome rational judgment. And that's the mechanism that ultimately creates groupthink, a dysfunctional decision-making process based on consensus instead of on critical reality.
So we've looked at strategic action, this drive for monopoly. We've looked at the fragile dynamics of internal motivation and group conformity. Now we hit the wall.
The wall of measurement.
Can we trust people when they tell us what they do? Our sources highlight a massive data gap between what people say and what they do.
This is a monumental problem for anyone trying to measure society or consumer habits, anything really. Surveys are essential, but the behavioral data tells a dramatically different story.
Why is that?
because people tend to over-report socially desirable behaviors like, engaging with hard news.
Let's look at the sheer scale of this mismatch. The data on news consumption on social media is it's eye-opening.
It really is. Survey estimates are routinely 2 to 3 times greater than what we see from passively collected behavioral data.
2 to 3 times.
Yes. For instance, our sources compared survey results to passive data from August 2018. They found 43% of Facebook users surveyed claimed to consume news. But the passive data, only 28%.
And for YouTube?
Even starker, 21% reporting they consume news, but only 11% actually did.
That difference is enormous. It means if you're a policymaker or an advertiser and you're relying on that survey data, you're operating under a false premise.
A completely false premise. You think these platforms are distributing twice the amount of news they actually are.
And it's not just that the number is wrong, it hides trends.
Correct. That distortion doesn't just inflate the current numbers, it hides critical trends. Survey data completely missed a documented 10-point drop in Facebook news consumption between 2016 and mid-2018. If you're only looking at self-reported data, you completely miss these major shifts.
And it's not just self-reporting. The way the data is collected introduces its own bias.
The mode of the survey itself is a variable, yes.
How so?
These mode effects are incredibly important. We saw, for example, that estimates of physical metrics like body mass index, BMI, when collected via the web, were about 3 points higher than those collected over the phone.
Wow.
Even the shift in data collection during the pandemic had these unintended consequences.
You're talking about the U.S. Census Bureau's challenge with address matching.
Yes, exactly. They had to rely more on vendor-provided phone numbers matched to addresses for some surveys during COVID-19. Well, preliminary research suggests they introduced a non-response bias related to income.
Let me guess. Lower income households were harder to match.
The lower a household's income, the less likely their phone number was correctly matched to their address, which could result in an underrepresentation of lower income responses. Every single technical step is a source of potential bias.
So the lesson here seems to be that relying on any single data collection method is just. It's inherently flawed.
It is. The industry's solution, or hope, seems to lie in creating a blend of methods.
A hybrid system.
Researchers are actively moving toward these hybrid systems, combining the strengths of probability-based surveys with the cost-effectiveness and scale of non-probability surveys. The hope is that blending them will mitigate the individual biases in each approach.
And create a more accurate picture of reality.
A more accurate and robust data set, yes.
So what does this all mean when we connect the monopolist, the motivator, and the misreported? We've looked at systems built on avoiding competition, internal systems built on these delicate psychological levers, and then these external systems built on measurement.
The synthesis, I think, is the realization of this massive internal conflict in human systems. Strategy seeks control, a monopoly, the unique values. Motivation seeks self-validation, esteem, autonomy.
What the reality is.
But the reality, as shown by the passive data, is just chaos and misrepresentation. Whether you're trying to outmaneuver a rival like PayPal, or you are trying to inspire an employee who's fighting learned helplessness.
Or you're a researcher just trying to track information.
Or you're a researcher. The key is identifying the true underlying dynamic. We have to look past the stated intention of reported statistic to find the operational reality.
So critical thinking isn't just a soft skill, it's the necessary filter in a world where information is systematically shaped by all these biases.
You have to constantly question the source and the methodology, just knowing that the data you see is likely a socially enhanced version of the truth.
Which leads us to a final provocative thought for you to explore. We know from the ASH findings that individuals will conform to group ideas even when they know the group is wrong. We also know that people systematically misreport their own behavior in surveys. If you combine those two forces, the psychological pressure to conform, but less the human tendency to over-report desirable behavior, what specific structural mechanism prevents our organizational teams from making critical decisions based on widely accepted but fundamentally inaccurate internal data or perceived norms? How do you mandate reality when the group prefers a pleasant illusion?